So if you're new to Gypsy Jazz guitar playing, the first thing I would recommend doing is learning some of the chord sequences. I know everyone wants to do the lead guitar stuff, but it is really important to have a basic understanding of some of the chord sequences. It's kind of like laying the foundations down before building a house. Now there are lots of jazz standards that you can choose, but I'm going to mention four now that I recommend starting with. I would say Minor Swing, Dark Eyes, Honeysuckle Rose, and Coquette. Now these are relatively simple standards. There's not lots of chord changes in these songs. The melodies aren't too tricky either. They're not complicated guitar pieces or anything. They're just kind of simple melodies. So I would recommend learning the chord sequence and the melodies by memory. See if you can get it to the point where you can play the chord sequence from start to finish without looking at a chart or anything, just from memory. And the same with the melodies. Once you've done that, start thinking about improvising over them. Now, when you improvise in jazz music, you're generally going to be thinking about the chords as they change. So you're trying to target the chord tones and scale tones, that relate to the chords that you're on. And you're trying to make melodies that tie in with those chords as the chords change, and as the keys move and things like that. Now, obviously, you can kind of play around with this and see what you come up with. But one method I recommend is learning lines, licks, phrases, maybe some solos from players that you like or solos that you like. This is a great way of building kind of vocabulary, almost like learning a language. When we learn languages, we learn we learn words and we learn phrases and what they mean and how to use them and where to use them until we get to the point where we can string our own sentences together. And so the same thing kind of applies when you learn jazz music. You learn licks and lines and phrases, and these kind of give you ideas for when you're improvising. Having a basic understanding of theory helps with this, because you can analyze the phrase that you're learning and you can figure out what chord it's over, or you can notice what scale it's in. You don't need to know tons of scales. The basic kind of major, minor scales, maybe like a major scale, maybe some of the pentatonic scales, minor, harmonic minor, melodic minor. These kind of scales are useful, but I wouldn't go too crazy with the theory to start with. You can learn that as you go, basically. But I would start by just learning the sound of everything and just learning melodies. Pick some phrases that you like, and just have fun with it, and just gradually build up your kind of vocabulary. And all these different ideas you learn from different places, it'll all kind of come into one big melting pot, and that will be your kind of unique identity as a musician. The same thing happens with other styles of music. If you've ever learned like blues guitar, you might have learned some licks from Peter Green and Jimi Hendrix or B.B. King or something like that. And then when you take a solo on a blues, you're naturally going to be starting playing ideas that are kind of influenced from these players that you've learned from. So the same thing with jazz. It's a big journey. It's a constant adventure. There's no real kind of shortcuts. There's not a kind of one scale that you can learn and suddenly you can play jazz. It's it's a lot more complex than that, which makes it fun and makes it interesting and keeps it fresh all the time. So I recommend getting into it. Hope this helps. But if you've got any more questions, let me know and I'll do my best to answer. Good luck with it.